Just as we await clarity of any thriller film, we are also awaiting clarity on what happened between the US and China. But we'll take you through all of that. You're watching Power Breakfast here on CNBC TV 18 in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Hormuz Fatakia, and with me is Vamakshi Thoria. Vamakshi, good morning. Well, we are all awaiting what's going to happen as the final frontier of the US-China trade talks, or is there still more to go? But it's an important session that lies ahead for us.
Well, absolutely, Hormaz. We'll all be keeping an eye out for that. Of course, yesterday was a very great session, so the bulls will be looking to build on to the gains. But let's see what today's session holds then. Let's get started with the top headlines. Stocks on Wall Street end on a flat note, awaiting more clarity on the US-China trade talks in London. The Dow and the S&P 500 end at the flat line, while the Nasdaq outperforms, aided by a rebound in shares of Elon Musk's Tesla.
Stocks in the Asia-Pacific region have opened with gains after a positive handover. Investors await further details on the trade talks between the two nations in London. The GIFT Nifty is indicating a positive start for our own markets.
Crude oil prices extend gains as Brent hits a 7-week high on the back of positive global cues. Meanwhile, gold prices edged higher, supported by a weaker US dollar.
The US President Donald Trump's top trade officials are meeting their Chinese counterparts in London for talks aimed at resolving an ongoing trade dispute between the world's two largest economies. Talks will continue into a second day, according to US officials. The two sides look to ease tensions over shipments of technology and rare earth elements.
The Trump administration is sending about 700 active duty Marines to reinforce the National Guard amid protests in Los Angeles. The state of California sued Trump over his deployment of the Guard troops, as growing numbers of protesters took to the city's streets for a fourth day.
Well, it's an interesting session that lies ahead. And of course, the Asia-Pacific screen yesterday was a picture of green in yesterday's trading session because the talks were about to start when the street was awaiting an outcome. But that outcome hasn't come by. So everything currently remains on the edge. And that shows up on the Asian screen as well. The Hang Seng absolutely at the flat line. The Taiwanese index, though, is up 1.5%. And of course, that is because of the trade data, because exports to the US from Taiwan were at a record high last month. It's showing up on the market as well, 1.5% higher on the Taiwanese index. Gains also coming in from Japan. The Nikkei is up 1%. The Kospi continues its outperformance, now 0.75% higher in today's session as well. So other than China, most of the other Asian markets are painting a picture in the green as of now, and that is showing up on the GIFT Nifty as well. The Nifty would be looking towards a fifth day of gains in today's session. The implied open is suggesting yet another positive start. And if we go by that, we'll again start off above the mark of 25,150. So 65-point uptick is what the implied open is suggesting. But Vamakshi, it was a session on the edge on Wall Street. Absolutely no direction in last night's trading.
Well, absolutely. It was a rather muted session in the US market, and Wall Street ended flat as investors awaited more clarity from the US-China trade talks in London. We now have CNBC's Bertha Coombs to get us a wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. markets were basically flat across the major indices on Monday as Wall Street waits on details from London on trade talks between the U.S. and China. And I mean flat as a pancake. The Dow down just 1 point. The S&P 500 up just 6, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq edged higher by 61 points. Officials from the U.S. and China met Monday in London for a new round of trade talks. Representatives from the Trump administration, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, are negotiating with their Chinese counterparts. National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett told CNBC that one of the things the U.S. is looking for, confirmation from China that it will restore the flow of critical rare earth minerals. No major agreements were announced Monday. Negotiations are scheduled to continue. And at Apple's annual developer conference Monday, the iPhone maker announced the first major operating system redesign since 2013, calling the new look Liquid Glass, a virtual glass look inspired by the Vision Pro VR headset. The company also announced updates to its visual intelligence features, including an Ask button that will let users ask ChatGPT about what's on their screens. Among the other updates, Apple also showed off a new Games app and AirPods with camera controls. But there were no major AI announcements, and investors seemed disappointed by that. Shares moved lower during the event and closed the day down 1%. That's what's happening here in the U.S. Back over to you in Mumbai.
Well, thank you so much for that, Bertha. Moving on then, Andrew Sheets of Morgan Stanley believes that the markets are set to inch higher from current levels and expects the S&P 500 to reach 6,500 levels. Listen in.
The equity market is forward-looking, and we think the equity market is going to look ahead to a better rate of change. We've already started to see some of the earnings revision numbers get incrementally better. We think that the dollar has been weak. We think it continues to be weak. That's a tailwind for earnings. And so we think the market is going to see better earnings revisions. You've already, we think, kind of priced a recession, priced the usual drawdown back in the April lows. And so a better rate of change, better trend on earnings revisions, tailwind from a weaker dollar should help S&P earnings hold up. The Fed's going to be cutting over the next 12 months. We don't expect a recession. Usually when that happens, the multiple doesn't decline. And so that's why we think the S&P can move up to kind of 6,500 by the middle of next year.
Getting back now to the U.S.-China trade talks, a U.S. official confirmed that trade talks will continue into a second day today. The discussions aim to resolve disputes over the transfer of technology and rare earth exports. Now, when asked about the negotiations, President Donald Trump responded, and I quote, "We are doing well with China, but China is not easy." Listen
in. We are doing well with China. China's not easy, just like your home country is not easy there. I think we're doing very well. They're over there now. I'm only getting good reports. It's a little early, but they'll be calling in soon. In fact, probably when I get back, I'll have my first call from them. We want to open up China. And if we don't open up China, maybe we won't do anything. But we want to open up China. It'll be a great thing for China, a great thing for the rest of the world.
Well, let's also listen in to White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. He discussed the state of the U.S.-China trade talks and also the latest update on trade talks with India.
The purpose of the meeting today is to make sure that they're serious, but to literally get handshakes from Scott and Howard and Jameson, our three lead trade negotiators, and get this thing behind us. So our expectation is that after the handshake, then immediately after the handshake, any export controls from the U.S. will be eased and the rare earths will be released in volume, and then we can go back to negotiating smaller matters. We've spent the last week and a half getting the China situation under control, including having calls with President Xi and President Trump, sending our top trade team to London to finalize that deal. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff that's teed up to go next, and India would be top of the list.
So moving on from the U.S.-China developments, Dia now joins us for a roundup of all the other developments related to President Donald Trump in our special segment, Trump Watch.
We begin with fast-developing tensions in Los Angeles that are drawing national and international scrutiny. The Trump administration is sending out about 700 active duty Marines to reinforce the National Guard in response to protests in Los Angeles. The U.S. Northern Command said Monday. The move marks continued escalation that California officials has condemned as unwarranted. President Donald Trump further intensified matters, suggesting that California Governor Gavin Newsom should be arrested over his handling of the unrest. In response, global institutions are urging restraint. The United Nations issued a warning Monday, cautioning against further militarization of the unrest in Los Angeles. And California is now taking its fight to court. State officials have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration over the deployment of the National Guard, arguing the president overstepped federal authority in responding to protests linked to immigration raids. Turning to diplomacy, President Trump expressed concern that Iran is pushing too hard in talks over uranium enrichment. While discussions toward a potential nuclear deal continue, the president noted that another meeting with Iranian negotiators is scheduled for Thursday. And in other news, President Trump's controversial new travel ban officially went into effect just after midnight Monday. The order bars citizens from a dozen countries from entering the U.S., reviving one of the most divisive policies of his administration.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dia. But moving on then, Europe's stock 600 index ended Monday's session 0.8% lower, which was slightly off earlier lows, but reflecting a wait-and-see sentiment among investors who are still waiting for any announcements from US-China trade talks taking place in London.
Well, the European markets ended on a flat to a negative note. Same was the case with Wall Street as well. We'll tell you all of that impact on our own markets because we are in a league of our own currently on the other side of this short break. Power Prep comes up next. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. Well, we highlighted all the global market action for you, but how will all of these overnight cues impact our own Indian markets? We now have our research team joining in with how the trade setup looks like and the stocks that are likely to be in the news. First up, Vivek joins us to get us all the market cues we need to watch out for in today's trading session. Good morning, Vivek. It was a great session yesterday. What does today's session hold?
Well, good morning. Absolutely nothing to complain about as far as yesterday's trading session was concerned. We expected the rally to continue as far as the BFSI was concerned post Friday's loosening monetary policy, and that's exactly what transpired. Now, looking at how overnight cues have panned out, U.S. markets largely subdued, a very mixed trading session as far as the U.S. markets are concerned. Dow Jones flat. As you can see, most of the indices ended flat. Oil prices, key monitorable, that edged up high yesterday. Now, Brent prices are near or slightly above the $65 a barrel mark. Now, talking about the Indian markets, fourth straight session of gains. We are now at an 8-month high. The Nifty bank, remember, is now sitting at a record high, and that was extended in yesterday's trading session. What gained? Well, the banks, the NBFCs, the insurance stocks, and along with that, the gold financier names yesterday saw a significant rally after the easing as far as the norms were concerned for gold lending practices. Now, when you're talking about today, Asian markets are largely mixed with a positive bias. Indian markets too, largely flat is what you're expecting as today's opening.
Indeed, keep an eye out on that. For now, a positive start is what the implied open is suggesting. Vivek, thanks a lot for that. Over to Upasna now, who has the list of the stocks that you need to keep on your radar today. Upasna, good morning. What's on the list?
Good morning. First up, let me start with Z Entertainment Enterprises. The company has entered into a strategic partnership with content startup Bullet to launch India's first micro-drama app. Next up is Oberoi Realty. Pankaj Gupta resigns as the CEO of the company with effect from 9th of June 2025. Next up is ITT Cementation India. On the back of the order win, the company has secured a new contract worth 893 crores. Hence, this stock will be in focus. Next up is Protein eGov Technologies. Even this company has seen an award of contract which is much significant, that is around 100 crores by Bima Sugam India Federation through the RFP process. Next up is Jindal SAW. The company announces capex in the Middle East region. It has approved 3 investments in UAE and Saudi Arabia totaling around $118 million. Hence, this stock will be on focus on the back of this. Next up is IRB Infra on the back of the May toll collection update. The May toll collections are up 8.5% on a YoY basis. Capri Global will also be in focus as the company launches QIP, sets floor price at 153 per share. Now, according to sources, the company launches QIP to raise up to 2,000 crores, and this includes an upsize option of 500 crore with an indicative issue price of 146. Wipro will also be in focus as Azim Premji sells 1.93% of the equity of the company. And lastly, Premium Engineers will also be in focus as South Asia Growth Fund 2 sells nearly 5.5% of the equity via block deals. So here are the list of stocks that will be in focus today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Upasna. But moving on to Sudarshan then. Sudarshan is joining in with cues from the F&O space. Good morning, Sudarshan.
Good morning, Vamakshi. So overall market trend remains buy on any dips, but if you look at the derivative data, it indicates a bit of congestion around current levels. But talking first about yesterday's session, we saw a big move in all the indices, and at the end, market closed at the highest level of 2025, led by the healthy gains in both financials and banks as well as NBFCs. Talking about the GIFT Nifty, it's indicating a start with healthy gains of around 60 points. On the flows front, also in the cash market, we saw both buying by both FIs and DIs. FIs bought more than rupees 1900 crore, while DIs have bought more than rupees 3500 crore. In the index futures, though, FIs have sold, and the figure was around 540 crore. They have also reduced long positions of 2,100 contracts and added short positions of almost 1,000 contracts. And now FI's long exposure has reduced to less than 20%. It's 19.7%. Now coming to the option front, on the call side, 25,100 call has seen addition of more than 30 lakh shares. Even 25,400 call has seen addition of almost 26 lakh shares. While on the put side, 25,100 put and 24,800 put were the active ones. Support for Nifty now seen somewhere around 24,800, and resistance, first resistance is now around 25,230. That is the recent high. And if we move ahead of, like if we cross 25,230, next resistance comes around 25,500. Stocks are in the band. First one is Titagar, AB Fashion, Chamal Fertilizer and Hindustan Copper. One stock that has come out of the band is Manappuram Finance.
Ending at a record high, Manappuram out of the F&O band today, 7% higher yesterday and well above the open offer price of 236. Sudarshan, thanks a lot for that. Keep Manappuram and of course all the gold financiers on your radar to see if they extend their gains. Take a short break. Up next, we get to cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, Apple announced a slew of artificial intelligence features, including opening up the underlying technology it uses for Apple Intelligence in a modest update of its software and services as it lays the groundwork for future advances. The tech giant is turning to a more task-focused AI approach and wants to leverage its developer base to deliver AI-powered functionality for using the on-device models.
Well, moving on then, we now have Manisha Gupta joining us with all the updates from the commodity space. Stocks are doing well and so are commodities.
Commodities, well, absolutely. I'll start with the gold prices, where we've seen a smart rebound come in on the overnight market. Well, it is about the weak US dollar, which really seems to be supportive, and then the geopolitical tensions as well, with Russia taking control of more territory in Ukraine, East Central regions, clearly seems to be adding to some premium in case of gold. But the gains in other precious metals have been even more stronger. Take a look at silver, another 2% of gains. Platinum prices gained 4% overnight. Palladium gained up by 3% overnight as well. And well, yes, copper prices gained 1.5%. It's trading at a 10-week highs. Crude oil prices gained up by nearly a 2 percentage point as well. That one is trading at a 7-week highs. So yes, everything across commodities is doing quite well. Apart from the weakness in US dollar, there is also renewed optimism over US-China trade talks, and that seems to be doing the trick as well.
Indeed, silver continuing to move higher, gold in a bit of a consolidation. Manisha, thanks a lot for that. But with that, we call time on this edition of Power Breakfast from Apple user Vamakshi and Android user me. Thank you so much for watching. Power Breakfast Bazaar Morning Call sets you up for the day straight.